lone gray wolf, desperate and afraid, approached a forest ranger's cabin in the dead of winter. Everyone thought she was dangerous, threatening, but what happened next would change everything we know about these misunderstood creatures. This is a story of survival, trust, and an unexpected bond between man and beast that defied all odds. Get ready for an unforgettable journey that will make you question everything you thought you knew about wolves and their capacity for emotional connection. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. Jack Miller had been a forest ranger in Yellowstone National Park for 15 years. The harsh Montana winters had hardened him, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened on that fateful December morning. The temperature had dropped to -20 overnight, and a blizzard had blanketed the landscape in 3 feet of snow. Jack was preparing his morning coffee when he heard it, a sound unlike any he'd heard before. Not quite a howl, not quite a whimper. Something in between, something desperate. He approached the window cautiously, rifle in hand. Wolves weren't uncommon in these parts, but they typically avoided human dwellings like the plague. What he saw left him frozen in place. A large female gray wolf, her coat dusted with snow, was standing at the edge of his clearing. But instead of the fierce predator he expected, she appeared weak, emaciated even. Her golden eyes, normally filled with wild intensity, seemed to plead with him. "This is insane," Jack muttered to himself, setting his rifle down. Years of training told him to keep his distance, to call it in. Wolves were wild animals, unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Yet something about this one was different. The wolf took a tentative step toward the cabin, then collapsed in the snow. Jack's instincts kicked in. Whatever this animal wanted, she was suffering. As a ranger sworn to protect the wildlife under his care, he couldn't just watch. Bundling up against the biting cold, Jack stepped outside. The wolf raised her head weakly as he approached, but made no move to run or attack. Up close, her condition was even worse than he thought. Her ribs protruded painfully through her once magnificent coat, and her breathing was labored. "Easy, girl," he whispered, kneeling several feet away. "What happened to you?" The wolf's eyes held his, and in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding, primitive, and wordless. Then she did something that would change Jack's life forever. She struggled to her feet and limped a few steps toward the forest, then looked back at him expectantly. She wanted him to follow. Every safety protocol and regulation in the Ranger Handbook explicitly forbade what Jack was about to do. Following a wild predator into the forest alone, in a blizzard, was equivalent to career suicide, possibly actual suicide. Yet he found himself trudging through the snow behind her, drawn by a curiosity he couldn't explain. What could drive a wild wolf to seek human help? And what would Jack find when he discovered the answer? As the trees closed around them and the cabin disappeared from view, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was crossing a threshold from which there would be no return. The blizzard intensified as Jack followed the limping wolf deeper into the forest. Snow whipped around them, reducing visibility to mere feet. Any sensible person would have turned back, but the wolf's determined progress kept him moving forward. She would pause occasionally, looking back to ensure he was still following, her eyes reflecting an intelligence that unsettled him. "This goes out against everything I've been taught," Jack muttered to himself, his words swallowed by the howling wind. 15 years as a ranger had taught him to respect wildlife from a distance, never interfere unless absolutely necessary, never anthropomorphize. Yet here he was, following a wild wolf into a blizzard because he thought she had asked for his help. His radio crackled with static. "Miller, check in. Are you at your station?" It was his supervisor, Linda Reyes. Jack hesitated before responding. How could he explain what he was doing? "Investigating potential wildlife distress about 2 miles northeast of my cabin," he reported vaguely. "In this weather, do you need backup?" "Negative. It's just reconnaissance. I'll report back in an hour. Roger that. Be careful out there. The wolf had stopped again, watching this exchange with what Jack could have sworn was impatience. When he put the radio away, she continued her labored journey. After nearly 40 minutes of trekking, the trees thinned slightly, revealing a small ravine sheltered from the worst of the storm. The wolf quickened her pace, sliding down the embankment with difficulty. Jack followed, his boots skidding on the icy slope. At the bottom, the wolf disappeared into what appeared to be a small cave formed by fallen trees and rock. Jack approached cautiously, retrieving his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the reason for the wolf's desperate plea. Inside the makeshift den lay 3 wolf pups, no more than a few weeks old. Their tiny bodies were huddled together for warmth, barely moving. In the wild, wolf pups born this late in the year were virtually guaranteed to die, especially in such extreme weather conditions. The mother wolf nudged her pups gently, then looked up at Jack with an expression that seemed to transcend the divide between human and animal. She had done the impossible, sought help from her species' historic enemy because maternal instinct had overcome natural fear. Jesus, Jack whispered, kneeling at the entrance to the den. The situation was dire. The pups were severely undernourished, and the mother was in no condition to hunt effectively. He had to make a decision, and quickly. Park regulations strictly prohibited removing healthy wildlife from their natural habitat, but these animals were far from healthy. The alternative was to leave them, which meant certain death in these conditions. As Jack weighed his options, the mother wolf did something extraordinary. She gently picked up one of the pups by the scruff and placed it closer to Jack, then retreated back to the others. The message couldn't have been clearer: save them. The pup squirmed weakly in the snow, its eyes still closed, tiny paws reaching blindly. In that moment, all of Jack's training and protocols seemed distant and irrelevant compared to the scene before him. "Okay," he said softly, reaching for the tiny wolf. "Okay." He was about to cross a line from which there would be no turning back, violating the core principle of wildlife management: non-intervention. But sometimes, Jack realized, compassion had to override protocol. What he didn't know was that his decision would not only change the fate of these wolves, but would soon draw him into a conflict that would test his principles, his career, and everything he thought he knew about the relationship between humans and wild animals. Back at his cabin, Jack worked quickly to create a makeshift shelter for the wolf family. He converted his storage room into a temporary den, laying down blankets and creating a warm, enclosed space similar to their natural habitat. His mind raced with conflict. Was he helping these animals or irrevocably altering their wild nature? The mother wolf watched his every move with cautious attention. Once Jack had set up the space, she carefully carried each of her 3 pups into the makeshift den, one by one, arranging them in the warmest corner. "You need a name," Jack said, keeping his distance to avoid overwhelming her. "How about Sage? You're certainly wise seeking help like you did." Sage observed him with those intelligent golden eyes that seemed to understand far more than any wild animal should. Jack prepared a mixture of raw meat and warm milk substitute, placing it near the den entrance. His wildlife medicine training was limited, but he knew the basics of emergency care. Sage approached the food cautiously, sniffed it, then began to eat ravenously. Jack watched in amazement at the trust this wild creature was placing in him. His radio crackled to life, startling both of them. "Miller, checking in for your status report." Jack stepped outside the storage room, closing the door. "All clear, Linda. Just some tracks I was following, false alarm." "Good. Head office is sending Dr. Catherine Chen from Wildlife Services tomorrow once the storm clears. Routine population assessment. She'll be using your cabin as a base for a few days." Jack's blood ran cold. Dr. Chen was the regional wildlife biologist, brilliant, by the book, and notorious for her strict adherence to non-intervention policies. If she discovered what he was doing... "Copy that. I'll prepare for her arrival." After signing off, Jack leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Discovery would mean not just professional consequences, but potentially devastating ones for the wolves. Wildlife services would likely separate the family, sending the pups to a rehabilitation facility and returning Sage to the wild if they didn't decide her unusual behavior warranted more drastic measures. "We've got about 24 hours, he told Sage as he re-entered the room. "I need to figure out a plan." That night, Jack slept on the couch, keeping the storage room door cracked to monitor his guests. Around midnight, he was awakened by soft whimpering. Entering the room with a dim light, he found Sage struggling to nurse her pups, her emaciated body unable to produce enough milk. Making a decision, Jack prepared more of the milk substitute and, in a moment of either bravery or foolishness, sat on the floor beside the den. Sage watched him warily. "I want to help," he said softly, offering the warm bottle. "They need this to survive." What happened next would forever change Jack's understanding of these creatures. Sage gently nudged one of her struggling pups toward Jack's hand, a clear invitation. With trembling fingers, he picked up the tiny wolf, a female with a distinctive white patch on her chest, and began to feed her the bottle. The pup suckled eagerly, gaining strength with each swallow. When she finished, Jack reached to return her to Sage, but the mother wolf nudged another pup forward. One by one, Jack fed all 3 pups while their mother watched with what could only be described as relief. As dawn approached, exhaustion finally overtook him, and Jack dozed off sitting against the wall. He awoke to something warm against his side. Sage had moved closer, not quite touching him, but near enough that he could feel her warmth. Her eyes were closed, her breathing steady, her pups nestled securely between her body and his. In that moment of unexpected peace, Jack realized he had crossed into uncharted territory. He had broken every rule in his professional handbook, risked his career, and formed a connection with a wild animal that defied explanation. But the greater challenge lay ahead. In less than 18 hours, Dr. Chen would arrive, and Jack would face a choice between his duty as a ranger and the promise his presence now represented to this unusual wolf family. Outside, the blizzard finally began to subside, revealing a transformed landscape of pristine white and offering no place to hide what Jack had done. Dr. Catherine Chen arrived at noon the next day, her government-issue SUV cutting through the snow-covered road to Jack's cabin. From the window, Jack watched with mounting anxiety. The wolves were now hidden in his cellar, a space not listed on the official cabin blueprints. "Ranger Miller," Dr. Chen greeted him professionally, shaking snow from her parka. Her keen eyes seemed to miss nothing. "Thank you for accommodating my visit. My team arrives tomorrow once the road's clear." "Happy to help," Jack replied, taking her equipment bags. "Coffee?" "Please." She surveyed the cabin. 15 years here? Quite a commitment to isolation. Jack placed a steaming mug before her. "I prefer to think of it as commitment to preservation." "Admirable, though preservation sometimes requires difficult decisions about intervention. Wouldn't you agree?" Jack felt tested. It can be a gray area. "There are no gray areas in wildlife management, Ranger Miller. Only what helps or harms the ecosystem." She sipped her coffee. "I'm tracking the Lamar Valley pack. We've noticed unusual movement patterns since the storm." Jack's heart skipped. Sage had likely come from that pack. "Any theories?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Several. Most concerning is illness or injury, driving unusual behavior." She fixed him with a penetrating look. "Have you observed anything unusual? Any wolves approaching human structures?" Before Jack could answer, a faint whimper echoed from below. Dr. Chen's posture changed instantly. "Do you have a dog, Ranger Miller?" "No," Jack said quickly. "Just the wind in the chimney. These old cabins make all sorts of noises." Dr. Chen seemed unconvinced. "I'll set up in the spare room." While she unpacked, Jack checked the cellar. Sage was agitated, pacing, one pup crying softly. "You need to stay silent," Jack whispered urgently. Returning upstairs, he found Dr. Chen studying a map. The Lamar female's absence is particularly concerning, she explained. Her tracking collar stopped transmitting 3 days ago, approximately 2 miles northeast of here. You were tracking her specifically? She is our most valuable research subject. First-time mother, demonstrating unusually high intelligence. If something happened to her... Dr. Chen's professional demeanor slipped. It would be a significant loss to our understanding of wolf cognition. The revelation hit Jack like a thunderbolt. Dr. Chen cared about these wolves. Before he could respond, the distinct sound of wolf pups crying echoed through the cabin. Dr. Chen stood immediately. What is that? Jack made his decision. I need to show you something, but I need your word that you'll hear me out before making any reports. After a tense moment, Dr. Chen nodded. 5 minutes. Jack led her to the cellar and explained finding Sage and her desperate plea for help. Sage stood protectively over her pups, tense but not aggressive. My God, Dr. Chen whispered. It's LV-42, our Lamar Valley female. She sought you out? Deliberately? Without question, Jack affirmed. Led me straight to her pups. They were dying. Intentional human-seeking behavior in a wild wolf is unprecedented, she said with scientific awe. This changes everything we understand about their cognition. After careful consideration, Dr. Chen made her decision. Protocol dictates I report this immediately. However, as lead researcher on wolf cognition, I have authority to establish in situ research protocols for subjects of exceptional scientific value. A hint of a smile crossed her face. This is clearly an unprecedented opportunity. As they shook hands on their new partnership, Sage watched with those intelligent golden eyes, as if she had calculated this outcome all along. 3 weeks passed in unusual harmony. Jack's cabin transformed into an unprecedented research station, with Dr. Chen's team documenting every interaction between humans and the wolf family. Sage had regained her strength, and her pups, now named Aurora, Echo, and Shadow, thrived under the careful protocol Dr. Chen established. Their development is accelerating beyond normal parameters, Dr. Chen noted one evening, reviewing footage of the pups' play behavior, particularly their problem-solving skills. Jack watched as Aurora, the female with the white chest patch, systematically worked to open a puzzle box containing food, a task typically beyond wolf pups her age. Is that because of human proximity? He asked. Perhaps partially, Dr. Chen admitted. But I believe we're witnessing something more fundamental. Sage selected for human intervention, an extraordinary cognitive leap. Her offspring may have inherited her exceptional intelligence. What remained unspoken was their growing concern. These wolves were developing in a way that was neither fully wild nor domesticated, existing in a liminal space without precedent in wildlife management. The situation came to a head when Director Thomas Hayes announced an unexpected inspection. As Regional Director of Wildlife Services, Hayes was known for his rigid interpretation of non-intervention policies. He arrives tomorrow, Dr. Chen informed Jack, her composure faltering. He's bringing the Wildlife Ethics Committee. Someone reported unusual activity. Jack's stomach twisted with anxiety. What do we do? We have 2 options, she replied. Attempt to hide everything, which would constitute scientific misconduct, or we present our findings transparently and argue for the scientific value of this unique case. That night, Jack sat with Sage, who now comfortably lay near him while her pups tumbled nearby. We thought we were saving you, Jack told her quietly, but I'm not sure anymore who rescued whom. The next morning brought clear skies and the sound of multiple vehicles approaching. Jack and Dr. Chen stood on the porch as Director Hayes and 4 committee members arrived. Dr. Chen, Hayes greeted coldly. When I approved your research, I didn't realize you'd be establishing an unauthorized wolf sanctuary. Director Hayes, she replied calmly. My reports have been comprehensive regarding this unique situation. Reports which describe intervention that violates at least 6 departmental policies. He countered, "We're here to evaluate and, if necessary, relocate these animals." "Before you make any decisions," Jack interjected, "you need to see what we've discovered." The committee followed Jack and Dr. Chen to the expanded habitat. Director Hayes's expression hardened at the sight of the wolf family, but he remained silent as Dr. Chen presented their findings. "What you're witnessing is unprecedented," she explained, showing video documentation of Sage's initial approach to Jack's cabin. A wild wolf deliberately seeking human assistance, displaying reasoning beyond anything previously documented in canid behavior. "And these interactive behaviors," she continued, showing footage of the pups solving increasingly complex puzzles, "suggest cognitive abilities we've never observed in wild wolf populations." Hayes frowned. "Impressive, but irrelevant to policy. These animals should be in a controlled rehabilitation facility." "With all due respect," Jack interjected, "that would destroy the very thing that makes this case extraordinary: the trust relationship." As if on cue, Sage approached the viewing window, her golden eyes studying the newcomers with remarkable composure. Aurora followed, mimicking her mother's confident stance. "You're asking us to approve continued human interaction with wild wolves," Hayes stated flatly. "That violates our most fundamental principles." Dr. Chen nodded. "It does. Because our principles never accounted for an animal making this choice." The committee members whispered among themselves, clearly divided. Then something unexpected happened. Sage picked up one of the pup's toys and deliberately placed it by the observation window, looking directly at Hayes. The gesture, so clearly intentional, created a moment of stunned silence. That's tool use," whispered one committee member, a behavioral scientist, "and communicative intent." Hayes's professional facade cracked slightly. "I've never seen anything like it." "None of us have," Dr. Chen replied. "That's precisely our point. These wolves are showing us something new about animal cognition, something that could revolutionize our understanding of wildlife intelligence." Dr. Elaine Morgan, the committee's senior ethologist, spoke up. "I propose a compromise, a 6-month research extension with strict protocols and weekly oversight, focused specifically on cognitive development and eventual reintegration strategies." Hayes considered this, watching as Sage returned to her pups. "Under one condition, this remains classified research, no media, no public access." Jack and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. It wasn't perfect, but it would give them time. "Agreed," they said in unison. 2 months later, Jack stood at the edge of the forest clearing where they had built the transitional enclosure. Sage and her growing pups were spending more time here, gradually readjusting to natural surroundings while maintaining their unique connection with the humans who had saved them. "They'll never be fully wild again," Dr. Chen observed, standing beside him. "But they won't be domesticated either. They're creating their own way of being." Jack watched as Aurora confidently explored the perimeter, already showing leadership qualities that echoed her mother's intelligence. "They're teaching us more than we're teaching them," he said quietly. "That's the greatest scientific discovery of all," Dr. Chen replied with a smile. "That sometimes the subjects of our study become our greatest teachers." As the sun set over the mountains, Jack reflected on that snowy morning when a desperate wolf had chosen to trust a human, a moment that challenged everything we thought we knew about the line between wild and tame, between animal instinct and reasoned choice. Sage approached him, now comfortable, moving between her natural environment and human proximity. In her golden eyes, Jack saw not just animal intelligence, but something more profound, a shared recognition between species, a bridge across an ancient divide. The wolves would eventually return to the wild, carrying with them the memory of this remarkable partnership. And humans would carry a new understanding that sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries happen when we listen to the wisdom of the creatures we once thought we were meant to study, not learn from. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who loves inspiring stories and help us spread messages of courage and hope.